I do what I can when I can, how I can.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't. I went to one protest on Sunday, and it was a really small town that was outside of the city, and it was like a church. It was like a church organized thing, and I honestly wish I would have known it was a church organized thing at first, because I probably wouldn't have gone, because the first 30 minutes they were just talking about.
It was supposed to be like kid friendly and stuff, right?
Yeah, it was like social distancing, kid friendly.
Dude, I've seen so many things be like, it's a social distancing enforced. By who?
Well, not enforced, but suggested. People wearing masks.
Yeah.
It's everyone's crowded together, but
Yeah.
but
They say social distancing on the flyer, but there is no social distancing happening.
yeah,
6 feet my ass.
But I remember like the protest was from like, it was like an hour long basically, and the first 30 minutes we just listened to like 3 different pastors and preachers like tell a story about some nonsense on stage, and I was like, so can we like actually like protest, and can we actually like
Where was it? At like a city hall or something?
Clarkston,
but
Clarkston,
like,
Georgia.
But like what? Where were you on the side of the road? Or
No,
like,
it was
what were
like-
you? Was there
I
anyone
was-
passing
I
by
was-
that would see your protest, or was it like
No, it was
enclosed?
pretty much like a PR stunt for a church, honestly.
Yeah,
Like
that's the thing about a protest.
We walked like less than a mile in a circle with a bunch of people that were all wearing like church gear. Like you could tell they
yeah.
were promoting the church or whatever.
Yeah.
And
which is fine.
Yeah,
the thing that is funny is if you are having a protest,
you gotta make yourself
you have
visible.
to have an audience.
Well, the
or
audience,
else it doesn't really matter.
the audience was ourselves and people taking pictures and uploading it on their social
Just
media
fine.
and stuff.
That's fine. I don't want to, I don't want to shame anyone for doing a protest. And also, if it's like a kid-friendly protest or something, like you don't necessarily want to have, be on the side of the road because some like angry person could drive off the side of the road and like run into the crowd or something. Like,
Yeah,
that's not cool at
They had
all.
a small part of the city kind of closed off.
Yeah, I went to a small one on, I can't remember when it was. It was about a week ago. I think it might have been last Tuesday or something like that. I don't remember. Or maybe it was last Thursday. I honestly cannot remember. It was last Thursday because it was the date we recorded the podcast on Wednesday that week, didn't we? And we released
Wednesday
it
night, yeah.
Wednesday night, and we released it on Thursday. AJ worked double time. Props to AJ. But I remember I went to it the next day because because after the last episode I hadn't gone to anything, and it was very similar. Like the first speaker, like all the speakers were like from a church and stuff. But then we did actually like march, which was really cool because we like marched down this one street and then kind of just made like a loop down this one main like highway, and it was cool. The police were like super involved. They like blocked the road for us and stuff actually, which blocked up traffic for quite some time. And then at the end, I think the hardest thing about a lot of protests is like how do they wrap up, and also there's like a curfew happening in Georgia, so like once it gets to close to curfew time, that's typically when all the trouble starts to happen.
Wasn't there, and I'm going to just briefly mention this, and I think I saw you post this on your story. There, excuse me, I'm about to cough. A lot of the arrests for violating curfew were illegal arrests because the expansion of the curfew, the early curfew, wasn't done lawfully. So if you were arrested in Atlanta at least
in Georgia,
if you were arrested for curfew issues, you can contact certain places and certain people and certain attorneys, and I don't remember the exact
There's a
stuff.
lot of attorneys that are offering free legal services for people that got arrested because of curfew or because of protesting. But one thing that was happening and is happening is this thing called police kettling, where they basically will take a peaceful protest and trap them in an area. So for example, if you were in Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, there's only so many entrances. So they would block those entrances and not let people leave and basically trap them in there until the curfew. And then once the curfew hit, then they would just barge in and arrest everyone in the park because then they were violating curfew.
That's so messed
The funny
up.
thing about curfew is that the curfew has nothing to do with being in a place of business, but all places of business were like shutting down. The thing about curfew is you're not allowed to be on the sidewalk. You're not allowed to be like walking around. But it's funny because it's like, how am I supposed to get from my car to a place?
But you can drive.
You're allowed to drive, and you're allowed to, like, because I mean, what about essential workers and stuff? And that was the most fucked up thing about the curfew is the people that it affected the most were the people that they wanted to arrest. And that's because primarily it was people that relied on public transportation, which in Atlanta, a lot of the people that use public transportation are people that are, for lack of a better word, poor, low income.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are people of color. And a lot of them were not even protesting or having anything to do with the protest. But the first day that the curfew got instated, they gave no warning. The warning that came on my phone, it said the curfew for Atlanta is 9 p.m. tonight. And I got that notification at 9:14 p.m. So it was 14 minutes after the curfew had already been enforced that I was informed about the curfew. MARTA, the public transportation in Atlanta, did not give any sort of warning. It wasn't like when you got on MARTA that morning, they go, hey, by the way, we're closing at this time. No warning was made for MARTA. So anyone that took MARTA to wherever they were going had no idea that they weren't going to be able to take MARTA back to where they were going to. So it's just a giant mess. And another instance of corruption and, also just poor communication by the city and all that. But I ended up going to a protest downtown in Atlanta on Saturday, and it was awesome. And actually, the whole time we were marching, I probably only saw 4 or 5 police officers until the very end. Like, there was pretty much no police interference, which was really cool.
I think people are starting to figure out, and I think even the police and like the mayors and everyone are starting to figure out that like just leave the protesters alone, because it appears, because honestly, it's like, I don't know how to contextually say this too much, but it's like you bring protesters and police together. Protesters are trying to do what they want to do,
and a lot of the protesters are mad at the police. Like, a lot of the protest is against the police.
Yeah, and
it's nothing to do with these specific police officers standing in front of you, but they represent police as a whole.
Yeah, and the police are trying to do their job, which is, enforce law. I mean, they're law enforcement. So
technically public safety.
So there's clashing, and whether it's, protesters' fault or cops' fault or whoever's fault it is, people are figuring out, just remove the cops and things are fine.
Well, because in the beginning, all the attention was put on the looting and the rioting and the fires and all that. But really, I haven't heard anything about looting and fires and all that since the first few days. Like,
it was just
the first couple days,
just opportunists.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because a lot of the conversation is still focused on that, and it's like, hey, we've kind of moved past that. There's been peaceful protests in every single state all around, and also in cities all around the world. Apparently, it's the largest civil rights movement in history because there's so many countries and cities and people involved.
It's international too. Yeah,
and,
it's crazy.
I think it's really cool because it's this time where everyone, I feel like, including white people and people and non-black people, have been feeling a lot of this tension and feeling a lot of these feelings, but never had like one moment to be like, let's fix it.
Like a catalyst moment, like an eruption or like a...
And like, because of this eruption, it really does feel like something can happen. And also, it feels like, hey, while we're fixing this, let's reimagine how we can fix so many different systems. It's like, while we're fucking up the system over here, let's redo all of this. Like, people are talking about, reimagining what public safety would look like. I think that's a great thing. I think that it's really silly to think that police can just fix all of our problems whenever we have an emergency. Like, call 911. You're either going to get ambulance, which also means police. You're going to get firemen, which also means police. And then anything else, police.
Well, what I find interesting is, I listened to a cop talking about this. He goes, we are asking the police to do too much. Mm-hmm. It's like
agreed.
It's like we are handling domestic disturbances. We are handling mental health issues. It's like we're doing way more than our original scope, so we're overwhelmed and undertrained to take care of anything. And it's like,
and the police budget keeps getting bigger, but the amount of people signing up to be on the police and the amount of police officers is actually going down. So it's like we're pumping all this money into police, but meanwhile, we're not seeing the benefit of it because it doesn't seem like things are necessarily getting better. I wouldn't even necessarily say in a lot of places they're quote unquote getting worse. I don't know. It's hard to like measure that, but it's like they're definitely not measurably getting better. And I think you're right. I think when you call 911, it should be that dispatcher should figure out, okay, which of these like 7 different people should we send out?
What kind
should
of
there be a
emergency
social
is
worker
this?
who's trained in domestic violence to be sent out? Should there be a psychologist or a psychiatrist or something that goes out
or an interventionist
or an
or something.
interventionist that
Yeah.
talks to people dealing with addiction or suicidal thoughts or depression or whatever the case might be. And I think a lot of the stereotypical cop, the reason why you might not, like, you might be like, man, it'd be kind of cool to be a cop because I think I could really help people with this specific thing, but I don't want to get involved in any like shootouts. I don't want to get involved in any kind of like, so like the lowest common denominator is someone who's willing to like fight. You know what I mean? Like someone that's like, I don't want to get involved in anything like physical altercations. I don't want to be like jumping on people, making arrests. And I think those type of people, like a person that might sign up to be a bouncer at a club or something, are the types of people that end up signing up for the police force.
Or
or they're just power tripping, or they just,
or someone who had no prospects after high school,
Yeah,
because they
and-
focused only on athletics and not
it's,
academics.
And it's no knock on like military either, but I think it's kind of the same. A lot of the same type of people that might sign up for the military would, you know, maybe they didn't make it into the military, and so they sign up to be a police officer or whatever.
There's a lot of people when they come out of the military join the police force.
And I think those are the best people to join the police force because they've been trained in military
Really,
stuff.
really trained,
Like I think almost exclusively the people that really should be in those. I mean, when we think about the show Cops, you know, the most exciting episodes are the ones where they do something crazy. You know, the most exciting episodes of Cops aren't like some little thing where
some
you're
like constant de-escalation, no conflict.
yeah,
like,
and it's like police have been trained to just escalate things because that's like, I think probably a lot of them are almost like addicted to the adrenaline. You know, they're addicted to the power, addicted to the adrenaline. You can look at studies of, you know, I don't remember what the study was called, but it's that study where they at that university where they took like
Stanford prison experiment.
yeah, where they took half the students and made them prison guards and half the other students and made them prisoners, and before you knew it, the prison guards were treating the other students like shit, even though a couple of days ago they were on equal playing fields and they were just all students together. And it's just an instance that like when you give people power, they will abuse it eventually, you know?
I think it's human nature.
And I think that's why even like slavery continued to exist for so long, because it was like, I think a lot of people knew what they were doing at the time. Like, for example, if you were a white person and you didn't own slaves and you stood up for slavery, you'd be like an outcast. You'd be like ostracized from the community. So it'd be like, if you wanted to, you know, live in society and just like not ruffle anyone's feathers and whatever, you kind of just went along with it. And I think that's kind of like not on the same extreme level as what's happening right now, but it's like, I see police injustice. I mean, we listened to Dave Chappelle's stand-up from 1996 the other day, and he's talking about all the same issues that we're talking about right now.
If you
with
haven't,
police brutality against black people.
If you guys haven't, it's called Killing Them Softly. It's on HBO or HBO Go.
I just realized that title is really intense.
And
Killing Them Softly.
Killing Them Softly.
Yeah.
It is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best Dave Chappelle stand-ups, period. It is so
really
good. It's like you will bend over, like belly laughing, like.
But a lot of it is
laughing.
like, damn, that's too accurate. Like he said it so funny, but it's like that's still so fucked up that like
really
that's
messed up.
It's funny because it's like
that's
based
what comedy
in reality.
is. That's what comedy is, though, is taking a very serious subject and bringing awareness to it through humor and laughter.
Dave Chappelle is the best. I think he's the best stand-up comedian of all time. I love Dave Chappelle. But yeah, like. It's weird because right now we're in a society where I think a lot of people realize that there's a lot of injustice and there's a lot of things that America as a country and as a whole has done, but no one person has ever been like, yeah, that's how it is, but like, what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? Excuse me. And I think right now is that time where we're all going to be able to stand up and be like, yo, hey, America, it's pretty fucked up that like, you know, we built this country on the back of slavery. It's also really fucked up that we like came here and stole land from the Native Americans. And I mean, yeah, we gave them like some reservations and yeah, like, you know, now slavery isn't a thing, but that's not good enough, you know? And I
Well,
think that conversation with your sister definitely opened my eyes to a lot of that.
Yeah, for real. I saw this one thing where people were talking about like all of the terrible injustices that also happen to Native Americans as well.
Oh, yeah.
And how those people are the most forgotten because they're all put into this little itty bitty corner of a little itty bitty map, like reservations basically. And they have hardly any support. There's a lot of
And that community is not doing well.
there's
typically.
a lot of drug abuse, a lot of alcohol abuse, a lot of poverty, a lot of physical abuse, like a lot of rape. Like it's unfortunate, and the government is terrible to them. Like someone was like, "We haven't deployed military forces on Americans since 18 something something." And it's like, how about 2006?
Standing Rock, bro.
Yeah, remember when you guys did that at like, what are you talking?
Hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full episode, you can click right here. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you can click right here. If you want to watch more clips, we got 2 more right over here.